Welcome to the Full-Time FBA Show. In each episode, it's our goal to help you turn part-time hours into a full-time income selling almost anything on Amazon. And now, your hosts of the show, Stephen and Rebecca Smotherman.
Hello there, and welcome to episode number 181 of the Full-Time FBA Show. We have something special for you today, part one of a two-part series on the topic of counterfeit or intellectual property claims on Amazon. Stephen, are you ready for a two-part episode?
I mean, we've got so much to share with you. We just had to put it into two parts, but it's some really good stuff that could really help protect your Amazon account, maybe save your Amazon account. And I look forward to helping you out with these kind of really scary issues, counterfeit claims, intellectual property claims. What's going on? We'll figure it out in today's episode of the Full-Time FBA Show.
So maybe you've heard these statements before. Maybe in some Facebook groups that you're in, on some FBA groups, like retail arbitrage is dead. No one can sustain an FBA business with the possibility of all the counterfeit and IP claims out there. Is it even sustainable to have an FBA business anymore? Have you heard those things? We have. We see them in our own group from time to time. And these types of statements tend to come in waves. Sometimes they're more intense than others. So intellectual property or IP and copyright infringement claims, those, along with the claims of selling counterfeit merchandise or inauthentic merchandise, can be very scary for an FBA seller, especially if you focus on retail or online arbitrage for your inventory. Some sellers go so far as to say you shouldn't do those types of sourcing, RA or OA, at all because they are so fearful of an Amazon account suspension.
And so if you know us well enough by now, you know we don't take such extreme positions. I mean, we've been growing our Amazon wholesale business for the past few years, but we still love retail arbitrage and online arbitrage. However, we do strongly coach our students to take the necessary precautions and measures to protect their Amazon accounts in case we run into problems with IP or counterfeit claims.
Yeah, that's the key, is taking the necessary precautions. So before we go any further, we want to clarify something really important. Intellectual property, IP, and copyright infringement, those types of claims are not the same as counterfeit claims. These are two different things. They're similar, but they're not the same thing. And many sellers will even confuse the two of them and conflate them together. Intellectual property and copyright infringement claims are a complaint from a brand owner about an Amazon product listing. So that's not going to be a complaint from a customer. That's going to be a complaint from a brand owner. And this is usually not a complaint about any of your inventory that you have in stock at Amazon. It's going to be a claim on the product page. So an IP claim or copyright claim is going to be filed by a brand owner when they think that the product page on Amazon that's not associated with their own brand that they've created themselves. It's another product page. They are making a claim that that page is using their copyrighted images, copy, bullet points, description, or even the brand name without their permission. So be sure you understand that specific definition of what an intellectual property, IP, or copyright infringement claim is.
And so that's what that is. Counterfeit claims, on the other hand, they are usually a complaint from a brand or a customer that the item you're selling is not authentic, but it's a counterfeit. It's a fake. So while IP claims are focused on the product page, the pictures and the wording, the counterfeit claim is focused on your actual inventory. The counterfeit accusation usually centers around doubts that the inventory is authentic or if it was purchased from an authentic source.
So the best way to handle a counterfeit claim is to send Amazon the invoice or receipt that you have for the accused counterfeit item. Of course, wholesale receipts for inventory that you have purchased directly from a brand, or an invoice, a receipt or an invoice from a brand, is going to be the best option that you have for proving authenticity. We would also say that invoices from approved wholesale distributors also work very well, approved by the brand themselves. They have their own wholesale distributors. You can use a receipt or an invoice from the brand or from a distributor to prove authenticity on Amazon. On the other hand, some retail or online arbitrage receipts will be accepted by Amazon to prove authenticity. You want to make sure that the retail or online store uses a unique identifier on their receipts. so that you can prove that the item is authentic. Usually that's going to be the brand's UPC number. There's some other numbers that you might be able to use to create a paper trail showing that those items are unique. So this is something that is a myth at times when we say people are saying that retail arbitrage is dead. A lot of times they say that because they are saying, oh, you can't use retail receipts. Amazon doesn't accept receipts. And that is not an accurate statement. Amazon will at times, in fact, most of the time, use retail or online receipts to prove authenticity of an item.
Yeah. The fact is that Amazon does not use retail receipts when it comes to approval to sell certain items that you're gated, but they'll definitely take receipts to prove authenticity. But they need to be the right receipts, because there's some stores out there that don't use the UPC on the receipts, and that can cause Amazon to question the authenticity of the item. Without a UPC or some other identifying number on the receipt, it can really be hit or miss on if Amazon is going to accept it as proof of authenticity. Most stores will include the UPC on the receipt, but there are some stores that do not. There are certain second chance stores like TJ Maxx, Home Goods, or even Tuesday Morning, which is going out of business right now. So you might want to go see if there's a Tuesday Morning near you to see if they're
going out of business everywhere.
There's a lot of their stores are shutting down,
okay,
and eventually I think they're all going to be gone. But there's many of them going out of business, individual stores across the nation right now. So check those out. But back to this, those kind of stores are second chance stores. These certain items that they purchased from other stores were not able to be sold originally at a first store, so they've sold them off in like liquidation to these second chance stores. And so the second chance stores, again, like TJ Maxx, Home Goods, Tuesday Morning, these are the stores that will not have a UPC on the receipt, because you'll really want to be careful and weigh the risks of sourcing from these stores. You know, if you have no counterfeit complaints, maybe it's okay for you to source from these stores, because most people won't make a counterfeit complaint on these items. But if you do have a few counterfeit complaints, maybe you just want to take a break. It all depends on your anxiety levels or the levels of your spouse, if you want to keep sourcing from these second chance stores that don't have a UPC on the receipt.
I feel attacked by that statement.
What?
The anxiety levels of your spouse.
Oh, well.
Are you talking about me?
I mean, I just know the realistic that, you know, usually in marriages, there's one spouse that's like ready to go hog wild on everything. And then there's another spouse that needs a little bit
He's more risk averse.
Yes, more risk averse. That's right. That's the best way to say that.
Yes.
So I was just trying to be real and speak to every person who's listening, not just people like me, but people like you too.
Okay. Carry on.
So again, it all depends on your anxiety levels. If you want to keep selling these kind of items or sourcing from these locations, we've decided to, in certain situations, source from there and be really smart about it.
So another question that would often come up at this point is, what do I do if I got an item at a garage sale or a thrift store and don't have a receipt? That's another really questionable area when it comes to your sourcing and proving authenticity. And in this case, it's going to be likely that you only have one of an item to sell. If you got it from a garage sale, I mean, it's very rare to find a garage sale or thrift store where you're able to find multiples or many multiples of an item. So in that case, we would just say remove that item from FBA and move on to better inventory rather than having to worry about the receipt. Okay, let's move on to the topic of IP complaints. So the way these problems generally show up is this. An Amazon seller receives a message inside Seller Central from someone who looks like the brand owner of an item in their inventory. And the sender of that message may or may not actually be the brand owner or their representative. Some cases, it really is the brand owner or their legal representative. So you need to check this out. Find out whether it really is or not. But in other cases, the sender is a competitor on Amazon who's trying to scare their competition away so that these other sellers will be intimidated into abandoning the listing. These scare tactics work, but they are very much against Amazon's terms of services.
And so the message from the brand owner, whether it's real or a fake brand owner, generally contains a demand and a warning. The demand that the seller stop selling that item on Amazon, the warning that the brand owner will take legal action and or report the seller to Amazon if the demand is not met. You know, typically the demand is for the seller to stop selling the item based on an IP or copyright infringement, maybe even a counterfeit claim. And it can be hard to tell whether or not these types of messages are legit or not. You know, sneaky competitors can go to great lengths to make their threats look authentic. You want to look for maybe misspellings or typos, other signs that the sender is not a professional, but not every trickster has poor grammar and spelling. But most of these messages are via Seller Central messages. So if you get something outside of Seller Central, just a direct email, then it's probably a sign that it's not a brand owner, but maybe a brand poser, someone acting like the brand, but not the legit representative.
There's another difference that you can find between these actual claims and possible suspected claims. The real claims are going to come from the original brand owner, but the suspected claims are from an algorithm bot usually. So you'll want to check your Seller Central account health to see if those IP claims or counterfeit claims are actually on your account. And that will show up in your account health in the dashboard there. Or you would see if the brand is simply reaching out via Amazon messaging. So you can see this for yourself in your Seller Central by going to Performance and then to Account Health. So you'll see in that spot, you'll see suspected intellectual property violations, received intellectual property complaints, product authenticity customer complaints, and other account health complaints or violations. But the ones we listed today, the ones I just listed, are on topic with today's podcast.
So the more complaints or violations you have on your account, the lower your health rating becomes. Sounds kind of obvious. So you can compare that data with the messages you're getting from the brand to see if they've actually made an official complaint or if they're just threatening it toward you and messaging you before they submit that complaint. If it's just a message and there's no official complaint in your account, then that's good. You have the opportunity to respond well and avoid the official complaint or violation. Now, if you do see the violations or complaints in your account, don't worry, you can still respond well to those situations and get those removed. So even if you can't get them removed, the good news is that these violations or complaints do not stay on your account visible forever. Most of these violations or complaints will fall off your account after about 6 months and will no longer be visible and shown or counted against you for your account health metrics. Now, of course, Amazon will always know how many of these violations or complaints you have received over the years, but in regards to actual health rating number and the calculations, after 6 months or so, they will not be counted against that health rating number.
In any case, the best course of action is to handle these claims in a very similar way, regardless of whether you suspect the sender is a competitor or a legit brand reaching out to you. When they message you, you need to know exactly how to respond, and that's our cliffhanger. That's what we're going to focus on next week on the Full-Time FBA show, is how to respond to these claims, whether they're legit or not. We're going to talk about the best ways to protect your Amazon account, as well as resources that will help you greatly lower the chances of these claims landing on your seller account in the first place. So before we leave today, we want to make sure that you are signed up for our newsletter. If you have not signed up already, why are you waiting? We send out a newsletter once or twice a week. We have links to blog posts, articles, podcast episodes, videos that we do, all sorts of resources to help you turn part-time hours into a full-time income with Amazon FBA. Be sure and go today to fulltimefba.com and look for the subscribe button so that you can get signed up. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Full-Time FBA Show. As a reminder, we always have the show notes for you and the transcript of the episodes on our podcast page, fulltimefba.com/181. This is episode number 181, fulltimefba.com/181.
And you already know this, but next week on the show, we have part 2 of dealing with counterfeit or intellectual property claims on Amazon against your account, how to respond well, how to avoid it. It's going to be great. We'll see you next week on the show.
That's all for this episode of the Full-Time FBA Show. So head over to fulltimefba.com/podcast, where you'll find the show notes and links from this episode. While you're there, subscribe to our newsletter, where you'll get several free downloads of our popular and helpful Amazon FBA resources. Now, take action on what you've learned today, so you can find success at turning part-time hours into a full-time income with Amazon FBA.